How much does an ADU cost in California? I'm going to break down how much an above garage 446 square foot ADU cost my friends to build in Orange County, California. I'm making this video because my other video where I share my experience building a 1200 square foot detached ADU in Orange County, California got so much love. And so thank you everyone for watching that video, commenting, liking. That video as of right now has 46,000 views, 244 comments, and 1,000 likes. If you're interested in the other video, here's a quick link to it. And so before I dive into all the details, go ahead and drop a comment because I'd love to hear what people think about ADUs. And I'd also like to know, are you interested in building one yourself? And for my boy Harvey right here, don't worry, my friends also built this one for family use. Okay, let's dive into the details here. I'm gonna cover what everyone really cares about is the cost and a detailed breakdown, the timeline, my friends' experience and what they might do differently next time. And make sure you stay till the end because I'm gonna share some photos of the final product. It is very beautiful. Plus, I'm gonna share the biggest takeaways in both. And of course, I'm gonna start with what everyone wants to know, cost. Just a disclaimer, my friend is very handy and very skilled, does have some training in some of the construction trades. Some of the work he actually completed himself. So your costs today are probably going to be a bit higher because of inflation and because you're probably not doing the work yourself. Another thing that he mentioned about the cost was the cost savings that he had by doing the work himself. He actually just applied those savings and got much higher end finishes. And you'll be able to see the finished product at the end of the video. So the total cost for this project was around $90,000 for a 446 square foot studio above garage conversion. The notes he shared about cost were more about trade and each subcontractor or aspect of the project. And so starting with architect slash design, it cost him $14,000. His city fees were $3,600. His framing was $2,700. His plumbing was $6,900. Roofing, $2,000. Insulation and drywall install. He had some carpenters help out with that. $2,000. Then he said flooring plus shower install was about $9,600. Cabinets, which are in the kitchen, bathroom, and countertops, $14,500. Appliances, $4,500. His HVAC system was $10,000. Drywall and paint, $7,300. Doors and closets, $2,000. Bathroom shower tile, $2,500, including materials and labor there. Shower door, $1,500. Windows, $1,100. Existing garage repairs, $5,600. So the total comes out to about $90,000. And if you divide the total square feet, if you divide that by the 446, it comes out to about $202 per square foot. That number is really low compared to today's rates. So talking to homeowners, talking to general contractors, today's, average range of cost per square foot is somewhere between probably $275 to $350 on average. And I've gotten some emails from people, they're getting quotes, $500 per square foot. And so kind of going back to this cost, right? His numbers are much lower because when he was doing the work, it was about 2 years ago. Today we have inflation. So his numbers are also super low because he is a tradesperson himself. And so he probably got a little bit of a discount on that labor from some of these subs as well. And so after talking to him, he said, I probably saved about 15% because of those, kind of hookups or connections. And so if you don't have those, which, most people don't, we can relook at this number and add a 15% kind of markup. So I kind of recalculated that price per square foot, adding that 15% back in. We get a total cost of about $103,500. And so if you divide that by the 446 square footage, it actually comes out to about $232 per square foot. And if you can get that price today and get skilled, good tradesmen, that's a really great price for today's rates. And so now that I've kind of covered the costs, let's go into the timeline. So his project took about 24 months total from meeting with an architect to getting his certificate of occupancy. He got his permits issued, and so all the plans were finalized. Could start construction basically at the end of May, or maybe at the beginning of summer, June-ish, around there. He said the process took about 6 months to get permits. And this is where it gets interesting. So he started construction in July of 2022. A big part of this was he had some family and personal issues, so they really couldn't get started on the project due to that. Now, part of his project was that they did have to do some retrofitting of the garage, and they had to do some kind of updates to utilities and other things for site prep that took quite a bit of time before they could actually start on the ADU itself. So the major milestones in his project that he shared, he said that MEP was basically passed mid-July of 2023. From there, they moved on and they got insulation and drywall in August of 2023. And then from there, it took them a couple months to get through to final inspection, which was the end of 2023. Talking with him, he mentioned that this project took so long for multiple reasons. Like the first, he was managing a lot of it himself at first. He couldn't really get through the inspection process. That was a lot of work for him because he works his regular job. And so, he had to actually call in a GC friend to help him with the inspections. And then on top of that, he had some major family and personal things arise that put a delay on his project. He is very confident, though, that the project could have been done in 18 months or even much sooner. But like I said, life happens, and that's okay. Okay, and so let's kind of dive into his overall experience building his above garage conversion here. So in the planning and permitting phase, he mentioned that his architect did not actually coordinate with the city. So he was the one submitting the plans. He was the one getting the notes and the corrections back from the planning department. And because he was working his full-time job and managing the stuff that was going on in his personal life, this really delayed the process. And he said that if he was to ever build another ADU, which he probably won't because he's in his forever home and they just finished this ADU, his family's in there, he would likely hire a full service architect in the sense of he would want the architect to be coordinating with the city department for submitting the plans and kind of just handling that entire process for him because it was so time consuming and kind of draining for him. The other main struggle that he had building his ADU was city inspections. He does work in construction and he is familiar with inspections and handling that process, but it was just so time consuming. He said looking back on this project, he would have just hired a GC from the get-go to just handle all the inspections and the corrections instead of trying to save that money. So he actually ended up hiring his friend who is a full GC to take that process over for him. It was just too much, right? 50 hours a week at work, family matters, personal matters, doing the work yourself on the project. At the end of the day, he felt that paying money would have been better than him trying to save money because of all the time and stress that it was causing him. And just a side note here, if you're not familiar with the inspection process, depending on the city, they give you a day, but they don't give you a time for your inspection. So in my experience, right, like my GC would be at my house at 8 a.m. and sometimes he'd just be there waiting the whole day till 5 p.m. waiting for the inspector. And he said, if I'm not here and the inspector comes, then I have to reschedule, which could add 2 or 3 weeks every time. Another thing to note about inspections is that depending on your city, they could give you one inspector for the entire project, or it could be a different inspector every inspection. So in his experience, those were the 2 biggest struggles for his project. With that being said, would he do it again? He said, yes, absolutely, we would do it again. We love our ADU. The family member that is now living in the ADU absolutely loves it too. And then I also asked, was it an enjoyable experience? And he said, no, it was extraordinarily stressful. But a part of that was his life was stressful at the time because of a lot of personal matters. And he did say if those personal things didn't happen, managing this project and the stress of this project probably wouldn't have felt so heavy. But having both at the same time was just overwhelming. Before we take a look at the actual photos of the above garage ADU, if you've been enjoying the content that I'm making, please smash the subscribe button. Okay, now you go ahead and be the judge and let me know what you think of the ADU. So we're gonna have some before and after photos. So this is the space, this is the subflooring here. We have some nice exposed beams and a light fixture. We got some framing. We got the tail of their cute dog. So here's another angle before some of the other framing went up. Another picture of their dog in here. Here's the bathroom framed out. Here we see some flooring going in. This is pretty close to finished. Looks really good here. Love the exposed beams. Here's the bathroom. Here's the shower before it's finished. Another shot of the shower here. And then here's just a quick walkthrough of the entire thing. As I mentioned before, they use some of that cost savings on the labor to buy some higher end finished materials. And it very clearly shows. And so my personal favorite touches on this ADU, they have these beautiful exposed beams that match their floating shelves. And I really love their kitchen design. I love the contrast of that dark backsplash and their countertops. And then if you notice, their doors and their fixtures are all super nice as well. Overall, I love the way they designed their ADU, and I think it looks great. Now let's kind of go over some major differences in my experience and theirs. So right off the bat, first thing that we talked about was architect. So my architect, the fee was $7,000 and it was a flat fee. And my architect, that was negotiated just right up front. Flat fee. My architect said, we'll handle submitting everything. We will handle going back and forth with the city, and you don't, and basically I knew the price up front and that was a guaranteed price. There's no surprises in the cost for me. And so they paid around $14,000 in architect fees. They mentioned there were some change orders and their architect did not submit to the city. They had to submit to the city, get the notes, send it to the architect, versus my process was a little bit more hands off. My architect just handled it all kind of for me. And I think their architect charged by the hour, whereas mine just did a flat fee. And so something to note, I did ask my architect as well. This is a huge misconception that plans for an ADU are based off square foot. That's not the case at all. So my architect even mentioned, a garage conversion, above garage, detached. He charges $7,000 for all of them because the amount of work is the same for him. He has to design, he has to go through engineering, he still has to do the same process. It doesn't matter the square footage. The second major difference was our cost in permit fees. They paid about $3,600 for their permits and developer fees. We paid around $17,000. And so a part of that was, mine is a detached 1,200 square foot ADU. So we had more developer fees, school fees. That also depends on the area, the city, and theirs was just an above garage conversion. So I do believe that square footage here matters and the type of ADU that you're building matters. Another big difference in our experience is that I am not handy at all. I have no construction background. And I think in my case, ignorance is bliss. I didn't even have the option to try to do anything myself to save money, whereas he is super handy. He works as a skilled tradesperson and knows how to do a bunch of stuff. So he tried saving money on those things. And because he had that option, it maybe caused some additional stress and time. And so if we actually look at the overall cost of the two projects per square foot, theirs was like an estimated $232 if with no construction background or no hookups for knowing subs. Mine was about $238 per square foot. Now keep in mind, this was a few years ago, and I think prices today, based off of my discussions with contractors, homeowners, is much closer to $275 to $350 on average per square foot. And people have been getting bids much higher than that, $400 to $500 per square foot. So please keep in mind, our projects were a few years ago and inflation has affected everyone. So now that I've covered kind of the differences and our experiences, I'm just going to talk about big takeaways. So both of us were super happy to have completed these projects and have ADUs. They have a family member living in their ADU who absolutely loves it. And at the end of the day, all the headaches and the stress of actually going through the construction process to build an ADU was worth it. Next big takeaway is both of us were really stressed during the process. And I have no construction background, and he has a major construction background. But it's not necessarily the construction or the ADU project itself. It's that life happens, right? Like I was a new dad living in a construction zone, and for him, he had some major family events happen that are going to be stressful for anybody. And so I want to just reiterate, life happens. And as long as we have our health and our project gets done, it's all good. We got to try to control what we can control, and that's attitude and moving things forward on the project. Another major takeaway from both of our projects is the architect and planning is going to be a big part and can make a huge difference in the success of a project and the timing of it. My architect did a great job for me. I didn't feel a lot of stress in that portion, but also I don't really have a design background either. Luckily for me, one of our good friends is an interior designer, so she gave us a lot of input, gave us things that we should look out for. And recently, a lot of people emailed me asking for a referral to my architect. And unfortunately, he's dropped the ball on a couple of these emails. He hasn't responded timely, or people can't get a hold of him. And then in their situation, they said they probably wouldn't recommend their architect either, just because they felt the price was high. And as mentioned before, they had to go submit the plans, and they had to kind of coordinate the revisions. They said they would have preferred someone that just handled the entire process for them. And so that kind of leads into our next big takeaways. Your GC and your crew building the ADU is going to be obviously a major part of the success and your stress levels. So both of us were very happy with our GCs, and finding the right GC seems to be the biggest question that most homeowners have. I've gotten so many emails asking who my contractor was too. So what I did was I actually just created a Facebook group, and it's dedicated for homeowners only, really, because I'm in multiple other Facebook groups that are ADU groups, and most of the time it's contractors just trying to solicit business. So I'm really trying to create this community of homeowners and people that have built ADUs to share resources, right? Like we don't want to gatekeep. If you had a great experience and you're, willing to share that, contact or vendor, fantastic. And, if you had a bad experience and you want to share that contractor, great. That's someone that we can make sure that other homeowners avoid. So if you'd like to join that group, there's a link right here to the Facebook group. It's also in the description. And, as always, feel free to email me directly if you have any questions. Thanks so much for watching the video. And I really hope that this gives you inspiration or better insight on how you can build your ADU.